Hello and welcome to Take a Wander with Shebs. Now, my guest today is Paris Norriss.
Paris is an entrepreneur and a Dubai-based TV personality and the host of the show Guy in Dubai, where he uncovers the eye-opening side of Dubai. I discussed with him how he transitioned from the corporate world to the television world. Plus, we spoke about his future aspirations.
So let's take a look.
Paris, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time. How are you and how is Dubai?
So generally, I'm good. Dubai is very good, and not too much to complain about.
You're from the UK, and whereabouts in the UK are you from, actually?
At Somerset, I'm from a place called Longleat. So Longleat's quite famous because it has a stately home. It's called Longleat House, and I grew up in the forest. Looking back at how that was so significant to how my mindset is now, I've always had this sort of curiosity and adventurous nature. So I think it very much stemmed from where I grew up.
And whilst you were growing up, did you have any family holidays, family traveling?
I did go on family holidays, but it probably wasn't enough or as much as everybody else did. And I think maybe that's why I still have a big thirst for travel now, because I've had a little taster as a child, but never really got to do many of the other things, and that spurred a lot of interest. I went around Asia. I lived in Paris for a while, so I did get a good amount of travel through. And having lived abroad for so long, I think that again is also because I'm interested in other cultures, and I just find it interesting to be in other places.
What did you study in university?
I studied business studies. Yeah, and focused on finance.
I guess with finance, so you can work anywhere, can't you? The financial field. I assume that you probably would have had some sort of an understanding that you could do this abroad.
So I focused on finance at university mainly because there were subjects that I did previously where I could never understand why my grade was either good or bad. It was always subjective, and I never understood that. Things that had they wanted your opinion, but maybe the market didn't like your opinion and you didn't get a good grade. Where with finance, it was black and white. You get the calculation right and you show how to do it, then you've got the mark. And I knew that I could succeed at that. So I focused on finance and I ended up getting quite good at it. My mindset then was to join an investment bank or something like that. But I finished my degree in 2008. And at the start of the year, when we started our final year at university, Northern Rock crashed. And then by the end of the year, Lehman Brothers and all the rest had gone down. And basically, I was going to interviews. And at the end of the interview, I'd say, how did I do? And they said, oh, Paris, you were great. And I said, so do you think there's a good chance? And they're like, Paris, look, I'll be honest with you. We fired 8,000 people this morning. And I'd be like, right. And they're like, so if you've got other options, I certainly recommend looking at them. And it became clear that, I was very highly qualified when I came out. Not only did I have a master's in finance, I had done my CFA level 1 and 2, which is considered one of the most difficult qualification within finance, I think. And I had done all my broker's licenses. So I was determined that by the time I finished university, I was going to have all the qualifications that they just couldn't say no. But then, you couldn't foresee that happening. So final months at university, I had come to terms with the fact that there were two things that could really help me be successful. The entrepreneurial route is the way to success. I mean, that's, if you look at anybody who's been successful in anything, they've set up their own business, and it's a difficult and long journey. So you need to start early. And I'd spoken with people and they said, look, with entrepreneurship, there's no qualification or degree that will ever matter. You just have to get out and do it, and get kicked around a bit and hope that you'll succeed sometime. So I thought, there's really nothing that going to work at, an investment bank will teach me about how to set up a small business. So I thought, right, we've got to just start that straight away. The second concept that I had was, by working abroad and maybe being a little bit unique in the sense that I come with a unique angle, and I'm, I'm a Western expat and bring that to the table. I'd seen friends who had worked abroad for a long period of time, who had succeeded very well by being that person, because they were able to capitalize on being the right choice for a company when they moved to Japan or wherever it was. So I realized that working abroad could be um, good for my career for a period of time, as well as it would be a whole different learning experience, which even if I come back to the UK, it's something that I bring to the table, you know. So those were my two thought processes, and I came up with a business idea. Me and a friend at school, at uni, sorry, we had sort of highlighted a few different businesses. One of them looked like we had funding for it. It was going to be to go work in an expatriate hub, which could have been Hong Kong or Singapore or America. But Dubai was booming at the time, and it was really the place to be. And we thought, okay, let's go to Dubai, let's go research, meet with people, and put in the groundwork to see if this is a place that we can do business. And we came here, and the place blew my mind, because it was at a time when the Burj Khalifa was 2/3 built. So it was like they're going to build the biggest tower in the world, which is going to be almost double the size of the next biggest tower. And they've got plans to build one double the size of that. And they've got plans to build one a kilometer squared. And there was plans to do everything that you could possibly imagine. And it was hard to identify what was happening and what wasn't, because you couldn't doubt anything, because there was a lot of amazing things going on. And some of those pulled off, and some of those will be forgotten about. But there was a lot of things that were going on at that time, that there was a real energy to the place, and I just thought, this is where we've got to be. I don't know if at that time I didn't know if Dubai was also going to suffer from the financial crisis, but I knew that long term that there was a big story there, and I think I was right about that. So, and I'm still here, and even past that financial crisis that happened in 2000 here in 2009, and we suffered here for a couple of years. A huge amount has taken place in terms of the development of the city. I mean, since, let's say, 2012, this place is almost unrecognizable. The things that have happened, we've turned the whole central part of Dubai, which is downtown, into an island in that time. So many things have happened. They built a canal all the way around it. There's, a lot has happened. Some of it didn't happen on time. In fact, most of it didn't happen on time. We've got big ambitions to do everything as quickly as possible, as big as possible, but it happened, and that's what really matters. So that was my thought process behind it, and I think those were good decisions. Looking back now, it must be 12 years since I made that decision, and I think that was a good one.
I graduated in 2009. I remember the crash and going for interviews itself, very difficult. And I didn't ask, by the way, the interviewer, "Oh, do you think I've got a chance?" And it's a little bit disheartening when they say to you, "Tell you what, mate, look for something else." And to go through that at a young age, it can really get you down. And from what you said, I really admire that you've actually done it yourself and decided to move to a foreign country where, a lot of us will think, let's try and do it within our own territory before we move abroad. So that's actually very courageous in what you've done. And actually, one thing you mentioned as well, prior to talking about moving across to Dubai, you said you lived in other countries prior to that. So you said Paris was one of them, because actually you didn't actually move to Dubai originally. I read that you moved to Oman first.
Lived for a year in Canada. I did 1 year in Canada studying, so that was great, and it was a fantastic business school, Queen's Business School. I also lived in Berlin for a period of time. I was in Paris for at least most of my gap year, and then the plan was to move to Dubai, and I came to Dubai, but the investor I got onto my business was Omani, and he said he loved my plan and he saw the potential for that in the UAE, But he said, let's start in my office in Oman, build it, and then we'll take it there. And that was meant to be a 6-month period. That ended up being a 3-year period. I lived in a few countries before being here. Yeah.
Was it easy to say goodbye to the UK? Or, I mean, you've obviously got family, friends there. I'm always curious to find out, because a lot of the travellers that I've met have had no issues doing so. Was it easy for yourself to move to a different country, or because you've done it prior to moving permanently? Did that make it easier?
I think maybe that did make it easier. But the great thing about the UK and London particularly is you can always come back and you fit right back in where you left off. And I don't know if that's like the same ever in the world, but literally, I've not lived there for 12 years, and I can come back and I can call up my friends and we'll have a bit of small chat for a bit and we'll be back to usual. Though, I'll tell them 1 or 2 stories about Dubai. They'll say, "All right, mate, grab the next pint," and you just carry on as usual. And I've always felt that it's always there if I want to go back. And I actually think the UK is a really fantastic place. I think a lot of people leave because they're not happy with home. There were some things I'm not happy about with the UK. I think as a young person, it's, and if you've got ideas and you say that you want to set up your own business and you want to do something amazing, quite often people aren't scared to tell you that they doubt what you're going to do. And it's a little bit dampening. And it's almost like there is a slight jealousy. People are like, well, I've worked for years trying to make, something successful, so you can't just come and make it happen out of nowhere. You know what I mean? And there's also like an order of hierarchy, in the sense that until you've served your time, you can't have conversations with people of such a high level of seniority. So I can go and have a discussion with somebody who's of a very high seniority and achieved a lot of things, because I'm fresh out of university. I'm Mr. Nobody. Where I found over here, that didn't exist. And I was dealing with people of extreme seniority, and what they saw was a smart young guy with good ideas, and that was valuable. Where in the UK, I've always felt there's an invisible hierarchy, and some people will say that's a lot to do with class as well. There's almost like which school did you go to, and there's a bit of that in the UK. And so there was something there that I was just like, you know what, I've got bigger ideas for this. I can't deal with that lid being put on me. And so that was the negativity I was feeling then. However, having been away, I think I've started to understand what we do have really well in the UK. And now that I'm working in the TV business, I've realized the UK has the best TV business in the world. We're the biggest exporters of TV shows in the world. We export more than the United States. We have a huge amount of creativity in that space, and an industry where over here we really have a lack of industry. And it's not just that, but you have upbeat people who generally people are really taking a pride in their career. That's not something you find in every country. And you have a lot of educated people and fairly worldly people. I say fairly worldly because I feel that maybe having lived abroad and everything, I maybe have a bit more experience in that. But even so, compared to other countries, the average person is more well-traveled, more thinking about the world as a market rather than just their community. So there's a huge amount of great things about the UK, and I feel, as time goes on, I realize that I never want to lose my Britishness or my connectivity to the UK. In fact, I'm wanting to build it more now. And now it's really much a time for me to try and form those connections back in the UK in a business sense, and say, I'm the British guy who has gone away and made something and learnt about the Middle East in particular, but the rest of the world. And I want to bring that back to the UK and work with British businesses, but also educate people about other parts of the world, because I feel that I've really got to rebuild that bonds with the UK now that I've spent so much time away, but that I've got something to bring to the table now.
Come nicely to my next question, how you transitioned away from the business to television.
Dreaming big and going fast is what we stand for. I'm Guy in Dubai, and I'm here to give you a glimpse into my world. I'm on a mission to hunt down the biggest thrills in the world's most electrifying city. Diving to the deepest depths, panning across the skies to take you on an extreme journey that no one has ever seen before.
How did it first begin with you? Was it connections that you already made through the business world? And did you ever consider it? I mean, did you ever think about television?
I never had ambitions to be in the TV world. That was not ever the plan as a child or anything like that. Through different businesses I had set up, when you run your own business, having come from a background in finance, you then realize that the most important thing in business is communication, whether it's communicating with your staff or communicating to your customer or other businesses. That communication is a big thing, and that I probably found that the largest portion of my time and learning was around communication. I then had done a lot of videos that in that space, like corporate videos, which gave me a bit of experience. And then I started doing public speaking, which gave me experience talking in front of large crowds. And I was doing those really because I wanted to get as much practice. I thought public speaking, if you can do it well, is incredibly powerful. If you want to be, whether you want to be the prime minister or whether you want to be the head of your business, or even just being able to talk in front of a group of friends, it's incredibly powerful. And you learn through experience. You have to overcome fear and also understand how best to speak when you're doing something almost like a monologue. I thought, well, if I'm going to make mistakes on this, I need to do them young, because I don't want to be making mistakes when I have a huge amount of responsibility. I'm 50 years old and everyone's relying on me to be able to move an organization or whatever. It'll be a holdback in my career if I don't know how to do this. The TV wasn't really ever thought about at that point. We did look at new business ventures at one time with my old business partner back then, and one of those, out of nowhere, came a TV show that we started looking at. And we didn't actually do that TV show. It was just I had put a concept together, and he really liked it. And it was interesting just to see that I was getting support for that idea. And I spoke with a few TV people at the time, and we had been working on a series of videos. And I started to understand a really simple thing, which formed my whole understanding about how the business of TV works. We were talking with a network that had online portals, so they had websites basically, and they had a huge number of a huge audience, and they needed content. We had something that interested them in terms of how we could create content, and what we were able to do with that platform, being able to say that we have 20 million visitors, which was their platform, not ours, but with our concept, we were then able to get sponsors on board, and those sponsors who would have positions in the show essentially cover the production of the show so that you can create a high quality production. And from a business owner's point of view, I've always been thinking about how do you get capital in order to do your projects. And this was great because you can actually get the money for the production plus a bit of profit before you've actually made the production, based on being able to convince a network that has a big audience that your content is good. And so that understanding has basically formed the whole concept of what my business is now. So I then later after this, I thought, well, nowadays, and that was a business production that we were doing. I had come to terms with the fact that people are much more interested in entertainment than they are about business productions. Business productions are actually quite a niche type of production. In places like the UK and America, you have a much bigger audience, but the rest of the world don't really consume so much business content, but they love entertainment type things. So I thought, okay, how do I create something a bit more entertainment related, and convince a network that has an audience to take me on? And what you do is you kind of say to the network, look, I've got sponsors on who are interested. Meanwhile, you're saying to the sponsors, I've got a network on who we're working with, and you pull the pieces together. And one doesn't happen without the other, so you have to kind of get them at the same time. Now, my ambitions when I did that were that I was going to have a huge amount of sponsorship and a huge amount of viewership. And I tend to find that actually it ended up being down here, but I pulled it together, and that allowed me to get to the next level and pulled them together. And now I'm working at the level that probably is what I had in mind about 2 or 3 years ago in terms of viewership and sponsorship. But you see, it's very much a ladder. Every bit of publicity, every platform that you're on, every sponsor arrangement that you have allows you to get to the next level. So we're now on, as I mentioned, a number of different platforms and a number of different airlines. We're able to be on that because 2 years ago we started off with one broadcaster and one airline. This year, I'm sure we'll make a lot more arrangements based on the broadcasters and airlines that we're on now. And hopefully it will go up and up like a ladder, which then allows you obviously to get more sponsorship on. So the idea is, if you can keep doing that, I'm 36 now. So if I can keep going till I'm 50, creating shows and going up and up and up with more sponsorship, more viewership, then hopefully it will become something big, not too far away, hopefully.
Just to transition to the TV world, and a lot of people listening will know it's not easy, but you had the business acumen to do it. So you took it as on another, right, this is another bit of venture. And you mentioned about the ladders as well. People I've spoken to in the TV world will always tell you it's to get a millimeter, you need to literally put your back into it. Really, you need to really graft your way through it. It's not going to happen overnight. They say it takes, in the industry, the television industry or Hollywood industry, 8 years before you start seeing, when you see someone with success, it takes, they would have put in the work to become an overnight success, but to become an overnight success, it takes 8 years of hard work. Hopefully now you can go on to other networks, more around the world. I mean, to get 8 airlines, by the way, is phenomenal, to get to that level. And the concept of Guy in Dubai, what made you come up with that idea, and why was it important to tell that story through your vision, really?
Well, the thought process was very simple. I had attempted to set up businesses, and for some reason, despite all the ambition and all the hard work that went into it and all the sacrifice of sacrificing your Christmas with the people you want to spend Christmas with to work on your business, and all of your free time, they'd gone wrong. And sometimes they had gone wrong and gone sour. And actually, I found that we were in a very negative situation with the business partners that we used to really love working together, and now we've got some kind of legal battle. And that was very disappointing for me, because one thing is financially not achieving what you wanted to, that I can swallow and move on. But when you've sacrificed everything, and now the people that you actually liked and trusted are now filing, or trying to get legal with you about certain things, it all gives a nasty taste in your mouth. And I thought, you know what, I can't keep going on trying to set up a business and it failing and not reaching this pot of gold at the end of it all, and sacrificing parts of my life to do that, because this could go on forever. This, and I do know entrepreneurs that have been persistent enough to make it only when they were in their mid 40s, but have been an entrepreneur all the way through and failed and failed and failed. And I have huge respect for that. But I had to think, can I keep going like this? Can I keep going, not really making much money, sacrificing a lot, and then keep going with having to deal with a failure at the end of it? And so I thought, okay, well, if that's what this journey is going to be like, then at least the process of the business or the journey has to be something that is how I want to live my life. It's not just working towards what's at the end of the journey to be successful, because quite often you get there and you realize that actually it doesn't really change much anyway. So you have to think, well, you have to enjoy the journey, basically. So I then had to reflect in terms of, well, what do I want in life? If I really had to clear my mind of all the things that I think I want and that I've been conditioned to want, and think, if I could do anything and money wasn't an option, what would I do? And I thought, well, I think I really like to travel. I love travel. I love meeting new cultures. I love adventures and challenges. I would love to do something like climb Mount Everest. And I would love to go to the South Pole, and I'd love to push myself and be able to say that I've achieved these things. So that's one thing. I'm also a very sociable person. I like my friends. I love a good party. I'm a sociable person. But then I thought, well, those are all, certain things, but I don't think I'd ever be happy unless I somehow had a really good integration with my family in my life as well, which, having lived abroad, has always been a bit of a challenge. So all of these thoughts, I thought, okay, those are the things you really want to do. How do you make a business out of that? How do you make money out of that? And having had that little bit of experience about creating what was not really a TV show, but a show for an online network, and understanding how that model worked, I thought, okay, well, what about I create a show about this guy who wants to go and live out his bucket list and wants to go do these things, and then I show people how to do them. And at the same time, I'm promoting the activities or the places that I'm going. So we've got sponsors. So it's actually, from a business perspective, valuable to people. And then everyone's a winner. You've got viewers who are interested to learn about these things and be inspired by it. You've got businesses that want the exposure and want to be put in a good way so that people will come and do their activities or come to tree and things like this. And then you've got me in the middle, who gets to do these things and enjoy it, but has to put in the hard work in order to create a good production. So that's how I came around to the thought process of why I want to do this particular business. And I have to say, I'm never happier than when the cameras are up and I'm doing some kind of vision or dream that I've had, and now it's become true. I had this dream to race the world's fastest powerboat. I'd seen them in Abu Dhabi, these big monster machines, and I was like, I want to race one of those. I had this dream to go pearl diving, and I went and learned how to be a free diver, and then did pearl diving. And I have many more, and I always have to pinch myself and go, okay, just remember, you had this vision, and now you're in it. So don't get lost and just let it be over. Just take a moment to realize that you're here. And I always do that every time we're filming, because it's the sort of the recognition that we are we're doing what we've aimed to do.
You've done Guy in Dubai. Is there any thought process of doing like Guy in, I don't know, London, Guy in New York? Has that crept into your mind?
It's more than crept into my mind. It's very much our plan, actually. So essentially, I realized Guy in Dubai was limited geographically to the country we're in. And then we started getting requests to do episodes in other countries, and we actually did one in Ireland, which was fantastic. We've had a lot of pull towards Saudi, so we then thought, as you said, about creating Guy in Saudi. But then, in fact, one of your previous podcasters, Ryan Pyle, who's a good friend of mine, I spoke to him about it, and he says, why not just take off all the geographical limitations? Don't call it Guy in Saudi, don't call it Guy in UAE, call it something else, so you can be anywhere you want to be. And I thought, okay, well, I need to do that. So I came up with a name that fits, so I can have it anywhere, but still has some link and relevance to everything we had spent the last couple of years doing. And I called it Guy in the Sky. So Guy in the Sky is essentially a travel show, but there is an element of flying in it, because I've become a paramotor pilot, and that I wanted to create a road trip around those countries, but by paramotor, because we can film from the sky, where it's really incredible to see landscapes and cityscapes from above. And then we land and we meet the locals, and we go and do an adventure with them, or try their food, or this type of thing. So absolutely, we've created that whole concept, and we've been working to get the sponsors on for that. However, not a good year to be trying to do a travel show. It's there's been a lot of holdbacks on budgets and difficulties traveling. So we're still working on it, but it might be next year when we can actually film it.
You're going to have setbacks, and in a year that we've had, the travel industry, as I know, has people I know, in the industry have really, really struggled to sort of get things off the mark. Television shows. It is what it is. Where would you like to go first to do Guy in the Sky?
Look, where do I want to go first? It's maybe different to where we'll end up going first, because obviously we have to get the sponsors, which is usually tourism boards, or some kind of airline or something. So the one that has been the most likely one that we will do is Maldives. They've been quite active in wanting us to come there. Where would I want to go first? Well, I mean, I have to say, Maldives is never going to go amiss. I mean, that's a great place to be. If I really want to go and explore a country, I do like to go to places that are maybe a little less traveled to by most people. I think there's a lot of Africa that a lot of people haven't seen, which has a huge amount of beauty and culture and uniqueness. So there's definitely some African countries. I like to go off the beaten path. I mean, I'm somebody who likes to go to places that most people wouldn't want to go to. It's not a safe time to go, but I did have high on my list to go to Yemen. It's a really incredibly beautiful place, and it's almost like a part of Arabia that has stayed in the old ages, and in a way that's quite nice. But I don't mind going to dangerous places. So I'd say Yemen's high on the list. Where else would I want to go? Very much wanted to go. I did want to go to Iran. Huge amount of beauty there. There's a mountain there called Mount Damavand, which looks like it's been painted. It doesn't even look real. It's so beautiful. Surrounded by poppy fields, and it looks very much like the mountain from the Paramount logo. So that's a place I love to go.
So your show itself, it's very fun. Those types of places are sort of, I guess, if you're going to show it, would you like to do it in the same way, your enthusiasm, or would you like to do it a bit like you just mentioned, Ryan? He does it in quite a serious tone. How would you go about filming?
I feel that you have to sort of stay true to your style and the way you do things. I've always naturally done things a certain way. and that's what works for me, you know. So I've also found that the way that I like to show my videos is through the experience. So I very much like it so that I represent the audience and that I'm asking the questions that they would ask and doing the things that they want to do and expressing that to the audience. And then everybody else who's in the video, who might be, you know, the people from that area, there might be experts, you know, I'm there to sort of find out more about their life, ask them questions, dig a bit deeper, so that you know, I'm basically asking the questions that the audience would ask. So that's my style of doing things, and so that is very similar to what I've done in the past. I'm still perfecting the style, so that, you know, I look at things sometimes and I say, I don't like how I do those shots, so maybe I'll cut those out and maybe I'll add a bit of this. And I am looking at other videos and thinking, you know, other productions, and trying to figure out, could we add that to our production and would it look good? So yes, look, I'm always, I like to stay true to our style. I mean, there's a slight comedy element to everything we do. There's a quirky side.
Well, that's what I was going to say to you, because it's evolving, isn't it? So you might, because a lot of people start off in comedy or whatever, but then evolve into. But you can do both. You know, you can mix and match. And you said, you know, you watch a couple of things, watch other, and I think the best thing to do is always watch other travel shows and how they do it. You see, and you don't want to be the same, though, do you? Either you want to do things differently, and as you said, you've got your own style. Then
Absolutely, and you know, if somebody wants something serious, you know, or they want something highly in depth, David Attenborough's there. You know, if they want a trekking adventurer who's very pensive, you know, Ryan Powell's there. If they want to sort of show the uplifting side of it, the funny side of it, like make it a little bit more like to the average person, this is where I want to go, because I think I do represent the average person when I do these things, then that's maybe more where we fit in. So I think it depends very much on, you know, what you see. If they want our style, they'll want our production to come. I think it's best to stay true to what we do, what we're comfortable with, and what we're good at. I think if I was to try to do something else, we could do it, but maybe not as good as other people do it. So I think it's important to stay true to your style.
Yeah, it's exciting, and I look forward to, you know, upcoming episodes in the near future. You've done television, but you've done a lot of interviews as well. Is there anyone that sticks in your mind that you've interviewed that you think, wow, they were exactly what I saw on TV?
To be honest with you, I have interviewed a couple of famous people. None of them really stood out as anything exceptional to me. But there were people who stood out who were exceptional to me who you wouldn't think of. And actually they stood out not just because of it being an interesting interview, but because I just got really interested in their life stories. And that's something that's quite interesting with what I've done. I think it's one of the things that maybe I didn't have in my things to achieve when I started the idea of Guy in Dubai, but has now become something that's actually very, very valuable to me, which is I get to meet people who have dedicated their lives to an adventure or progressing something. So to give you an idea, I met a guy called Doug Herbert, who was the I think 3 times world champion drag racer. And I was meeting with him because we were going to drag race against each other in electric vehicles, in Teslas. So I knew he was a drag racer and he was a world champion. And that's all I knew about him when I met him. But then when I started speaking with him more, I realized that actually he was here in the UAE to talk with the government about a program that he has, which is to educate young people in terms of safe driving. And his motive behind that was actually that he lost both his sons in a car accident. So there was this, you know, emotional connection to his purpose to try and educate young people, coupled with the fact that he himself was a drag racer. So his love for cars and his love for racing them was connected with his dissatisfaction that he's lost his two sons in a car accident. And as I start talking to him further, I then understand that he has spent the majority of his wealth developing a car to beat the world land speed record, which is what they do on the Salt Lakes in Utah. And that land speed record was still owned by his father, who had beaten the record, I think, in the 50s or some long time ago. So understanding that this guy, his legacy, he was born into a family of motor legends, and now he's living out it's almost like his life is set for excellence. And I just thought that this story was incredible. And I actually been talking to him about doing a documentary about it, because he's still trying to find a time to take on this challenge. They've developed the car and got the sponsors and everything, and just waiting till the weather's right till they can actually have a chance to beat the record. So these kind of things really struck me, because it's almost like he's kind of built for success, and he will always push it to the edge, and there's no way that he can't. It was a really interesting story. Just to add to that, I also met another guy who just, I meet these people, I'm like, look, I just love these people, I just want to be like these people. And this guy, I think his name was David Mayman. I met him because I went to a Red Bull event, and it was the air race, and they told us very specifically, we cannot go past those barriers there. You can film here, but not past those barriers. So of course I think, right, what's past those barriers? We've got to get past there. So me and the camera guys, we snuck in and we went there, and down on a pier just by the water in Abu Dhabi and the Corniche was a guy putting on a jetpack. And I went down and I said, what is this? And he says, oh, well, this is a jetpack. It goes 250 kilometers an hour. I've been developing it. I made it myself. And I'm like, really? And then as we're getting pulled off by security, he puts it on and he takes off and he flies all over the Corniche. When he landed, I finally got an interview with him, and he said, for the last 20 years, him and his partner have been developing jetpacks, and they've now got them to the point where they can fly them. And they see that this will be the way that DHL will deliver you your parcel. And this will be the way that people will take videos. And this will be the way that people travel. And he sees it like Steve Jobs saw the computer, in terms of everyone's going to have one. And he's invested his whole life in what people would have thought was absolutely crazy, that people are going to do this. But when I've seen him fly, it's like, wow. You haven't wasted your time. That's absolutely incredible. And nobody really knows the name of this guy, and nobody knows that. I'm talking about in terms of major publicity. But these are two people that I meet, and I see them as people who are pushing what humans can do to new levels, and those people massively inspire me.
No, that is absolutely true. You meet people on a day-to-day basis, and their stories, everyone's got a story to tell. And I had another guest on, Simon Parker. He said, if you took a bottle of wine and knocked on some random person's door, they will have incredible stories to tell you. You've just proved it there. You speak to celebrities, interview them, nothing major. But then when you speak to someone unknown, they've got amazing stories to tell. And what about hobbies? Have you got any hobbies that you like to do outside of your work and travel?
Like yesterday, I went hiking I think we did like a 16-kilometer hike, and then afterwards, I'm almost passed out. I used to love reading, but I haven't really had much time for it for like the last 10 years. So all of those things that are a little bit more kind of like your downtime, have always been quite limited for me. But I've always loved sports. I've been, when I was younger, I was a very athletic sportsman. And I've always, thought that was an important part to keep fit. So I play pretty much every type of sport or hobby you could think of. I mean, a lot of the things I do in the show, like scuba diving, free diving, paramotoring, hiking, these types of things. These are things that I do off the show as well. So every Friday I go hiking with Ryan Pyle and another friend of ours, Pete, and we do a long hike, and that's always great fun. I guess that's downtime. But then I also create media around that. You know what I mean? So the way that I thought about doing things initially is I've got to create some media around the things that I love. So it was always like the things that I like to do when I'm in my free time is the media opportunity. There's always been a kind of a match there.
I read somewhere that you were big into your junior athletics when you were growing up. Is that something that you actually considered maybe doing professionally?
I was of that level where you can make a decision to invest a huge amount of dedication for the rest of your, at least, athletic career, because you can be an athlete till you're maybe 35. Invest a huge amount of dedication into that to get to the professional level. I'm glad I didn't, because I did see a lot of friends who did do that and unfortunately didn't sort of reach those peaks. Meanwhile, I have some friends who have become incredibly successful in athletics. I mean, I did decathlon, and I was on a sports scholarship at one of the best sports schools in the world, Millfield, and some of my friends became the England rugby captain, the world record holder in the women's rowing, and she was somebody I actually used to run with. So when I asked people, who from school has done well in the Olympics, they said, "Oh, remember Helen Glover?" They said, "Oh yeah, she wasn't that good a runner." And it's like, "Yeah, she didn't do it in running, she did it in rowing." I was like, "Oh yeah, I didn't think that she rowed." And they're like, "No, she didn't. She took it up 2 years ago. She did one of those bioanalysis where they take everything from your genetics, everything, and then tell you what you have potential in." And they told her that she had potential in rowing, and she started training. She managed to get into the qualifiers to get into the Great Britain team, which got her into the Olympic team. And then she won the Olympics, got the world record, has now won many Olympic medals. And this 2021, she's aiming to be the first female rower to win a medal post having children. So there's a story of someone that I used to train with who did invest in that and did succeed. But I have many, many friends who didn't get to that level.
Fine margin, isn't it? So the world of athletics, you've got to be absolutely top of your game. I mean, I played tennis at I wouldn't say a high level, but university level was the highest I got to. But I knew I was never going to become a professional. I was never good enough. So I knew, I can't pursue this as a career. But I mean, I played since my time. I do play against a few pros, and I give them a game. Can take a game or two, but I can't. I don't play that. I play maybe once or twice a week, during normal times. But when you're not gonna make it. You can grind in a business. You can grind to become a TV personality, anything like that. But I guess it's a very limited time, isn't it, sporting career, where if you don't make it between a certain, especially tennis or athletics, between in your 20s, then it's not going to work. I think I did mention before that it takes 8 years of hard work to make it into certain industries, but with sports, you've got a shelf life, don't you? So after your 30s, you tend to go downhill, on performance level. So
the sad thing is a huge amount of it is hard work, and that's something that we we can do. But then a huge part of it is luck, which we don't control. And a huge part of it is your genetics and your natural ability, which again is something we don't know exactly. I mean, well, I think nowadays, maybe, like I said, the fact that they can do these things to tell you where your potential is an advancement from when I was younger, when, maybe I could have been better in another sport. Who knows? But that's a lot of uncertainty to invest your whole life into. And if you're ever going to be successful at something like that, then you need absolute tunnel vision. And the problem with absolute tunnel vision is that's the only way to succeed. But if something goes wrong, like you have an injury, or or you just fail and you can never go further for some reason, then it's very difficult to adapt from tunnel vision in only one thing to now that not being in your life. It's a lot of athletes, when they leave athletics or if they have an injury or something, they go through really difficult mental traumas to deal with that, because everything they've ever worked for or known about or thought about has been one thing, and now they need something else. And that's a difficult thing for people to overcome, and whether they can adjust to another life is very difficult. So, and that goes for athletics, but that also goes for many different career paths. If you look at people who make it to the very top of businesses, they do it because of tunnel vision. However, you often see when they get fired, or the business falls down, or they lose money, often they commit suicide. And you're like, I saw of a guy in 2008 who was worth 12 billion, and he lost 10 billion over the financial crisis, and he committed suicide. But if you think about it, the guy was still worth 2 billion. But he, because of all the, things that were going on with his business going down, and his whole life was his business, because that's the only way you can get there, is from this tunnel vision that makes that everything in your life. So it's a risky thing to be so reliant on just one thing, and that's why you find that successful people are not necessarily that happy, because their whole life worth is based on one thing, and that's not always in their control. So often a more happier way of life is a bit more of a balanced life. So you have to decide if that's the route you want to take. And I've certainly taken a more balanced approach after my athletics career, and I think for my own well-being, that was a good thing.
Listen, Paris, I'm going to leave it there. I want to thank you for coming on. I'll speak to you very soon.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
I thoroughly enjoyed my talk with Paris, and I hope you took something away from our discussion. If you would like to see what Paris gets up to next, you can do so by following him on all of his social media platforms. The details are on your screen now.
That's it for Take a Wonder with Shebs. Hope to see you all very soon. Until next time, bye for now.